What's the latest on the news on the ground in Russia?
Well, first of all, disclaimer, I'm not on the ground in Russia. So, like everybody else, I'm following, talking to contacts, but, following what's playing out in public space. And I think what's playing out in the public space, both in Telegram channels and social media, also on Russian state television, is in fact probably more informative at the moment than what's happening on the ground. We don't know, the picture is quite murky, although there are reports of fighting breaking out, occasional fire, in Rostov and Voronezh. A fuel depot had been hit in Voronezh. There used to be a joke that when the Kremlin faces external threat, it bombs Voronezh, and now it's not a joke. So it seems like Prigozhin and his men are moving, or saying they're moving towards Moscow. There is a sense of not yet possibly panic, but certainly that the Kremlin is taking it very, very seriously. I wouldn't call it a coup or attempted coup yet, but it's certainly an armed insurgency or insurrection by Prigozhin's man turning on the Russian army and effectively on Putin. I don't think there is any at this point. After Putin's speech and Prigozhin's statement, there is any way of reading it other than this is an attack on Putin.
Can there be a settlement? This started because Prigozhin felt that the defense minister and the head of the Russian armed forces were doing a terrible job. He accused them of even attacking his own troops, something which the Russian state denies. He is marching north with his men on the M4 motorway towards Moscow. I mean, is there at any point a possible sit-down with the president or with the individuals that he wants to meet? We have got unconfirmed reports that the president's plane has taken off from Moscow heading towards St. Petersburg. How does this sort of de-escalate, Arkady? I mean,
I don't think it does de-escalate.
Do you think he just goes all the way to Moscow?
I think it doesn't de-escalate. I think it ends. I can't see any sort of settlement of Putin sitting with Prigozhin. The only thing that Putin will be sitting with Prigozhin over is if Putin is prepared to abdicate from power. So I think it does go to the line. I think violence is highly likely. I think these things do not get resolved by talks. Russia does know and actually has experienced many episodes of this spasms of violence, which sometimes do and sometimes don't grow into sort of a wider civil conflict. But this is the most significant development since Putin's very ill-thought and criminal decision to attack Ukraine.
Prigozhin started off his tirade towards the Russian president by also calling him on his grounds for the Russian war, saying that was a lie. Whatever happens at the end of today, Arkady, is the effect on the war in Ukraine going to be significant? Will it change things on what's happening in Ukraine?
I think yes, and this is a very good way of looking at it. I think the impact will be significant. I think, however this is settled, even if Putin, and I think there is still, I would say there is a higher probability of that Putin faces down Prigozhin, in a firefight, in assassination attempt, whatever. But if Putin sees this through, it's not going to. Things are not going to get back to how they were before this attack. This will, of course, affect the morale of the soldiers and officers who will be now. The commanders will be watching this very, very carefully. The morale was not high in the past. Now, if you're sitting in the trenches being attacked by Ukrainian forces while watching what's happening in Russia, your motivation to fight will be ever weaker. And you'll be making calculations on when do I jump. So, yes, I think there will be a significant impact on the conduct of the war. I find it very hard to imagine that some of the Putin, even if Putin manages to phase down Prigozhin, and as I said, he probably will, that Shoigu, the Minister of Defense or the commander of the Russian forces, will remain in place, and the army would not be rattled in a very severe way. So this is very interesting, of course, and just as Ukraine is intensifying its counteroffensive, hasn't yet used the main reserves, which is what I think Prigozhin had been thinking about when he planned this. This doesn't look to me at all as a spontaneous Prigozhin action. I think it had been, he timed it, he planned it, he's prepared it with a political campaign over the past months. He made all the important statements. He gathered public profile. This is not the actions of a man who's, I think, acting kind of on the spur at the last minute.
Okay.